chair of this committee. Thank you for taking time today. I know we have a lot of people online beyond what we just normally have on our committee, but I think the topic is relatively important to hear the Attorney General speak about potential scams affecting vulnerable populations. I think everyone here, you know, I'll joke and say, you know, now my car warranty could be affected by COVID-19, right? I mean, I think people who are looking to take advantage of people, unfortunately, during this time is probably a little bit more prevalent, as we see with natural disasters around the country. So I think, Sally, thank you for getting this on today and putting this together. I think it's very timely for the group. We're kind of in a little bit of a, I don't want to say holding pattern. We have momentum on some topics here, and I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, Sherry, here in a minute to get an update on the dementia-friendly side. But we're going to continue to move forward with the committee as we can, and as Arizona kind of reopens, work to be able to build the things that we had laid out months ago as we initiated this committee. And hopefully there's folks on this call today that will consider getting on the committee or talk to Sally about participating in the committee. I think the work we're going to do over the next foreseeable future will have an impact on the elderly population in the city of Mesa. So very excited about that. I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Sherry, for a little bit of an update. And then Sally, I don't know if we have anybody on from the congressional delegation, maybe to get a little bit of an update of what's going on. But as people kind of come on the call, we'll direct that back over to you for that. So with that, Sherry, I want to give an update on the progress of dementia-friendly cities.
Morning, everybody. We are in the process of getting our ducks in a row to apply to become a dementia-friendly city. So we are gathering letters from different stakeholders within the community, and also we are creating a survey that will be sent out to the community as well. We had a lot of momentum and steam going before COVID-19 hit, so we will pick that back up in the next couple of weeks, and you'll be seeing a lot more information about that. We do have a subcommittee for this, so if you're interested in participating in that, we would love to have you join the team. So you could reach out to Sally or myself and let us know. That would be awesome. And Michelle is on, so and is able to give a congressional update. So Michelle, you want to take it away?
Sure. Sorry, I thought I'd save you all from me being on camera today because it's been a long 8 weeks. As you all know, the Senate is back in session this week. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to be voting on any COVID-19 related legislation at this time. Mostly confirmations is what we're seeing so far. But Senator Sinema is still working with the bipartisan working group that the White House set up for the COVID-19 recovery efforts. And she's working with senators from both parties to negotiate the next stimulus package. We've taken your guys' input on that as well, so continue sending that as you can. So we're looking to try to include 501c6s, which has been a huge request across the state. And we're also looking at revenue replacements for local governments. It's in the very early stages, and there's still some debate about whether there will be another recovery package, so we're working through that. On the local front, we are still seeing a huge increase in unemployment claims going up. I believe it's the most that DES has ever had, including the Great Recession that happened in 2009. So we're working with people on that. We've got about 700 cases about that. We're working with SBA, so if any of your businesses are still waiting on hearing about their PPP or their EIDL, you can send them over to us at casework@cinema.senate.gov. We're following up with SBA directly on those applications. I think that's pretty, we're also trying to work with, we're hearing a lot of concern, obviously, about assisted living facilities and nursing homes and the high rates and hot spots that are happening. So we are trying to work with AZDHS to find the best way to proceed with testing and relaying that information. There are privacy concerns, so we're trying to work around that so that people know where these hot spots are and families are notified appropriately. And I think that's it from our end.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the work the office here in Arizona is doing in conjunction with Senator Sinema. You know, there's a lot of issues impacting the elderly, especially as you touched on the nursing home and long-term care facilities and the outbreaks within those facilities. Certainly a significant cause for concern. We'll all be watching to see what additional relief comes from Congress as it relates to, as you noted, revenue recovery for cities and support for other entities. So again, we appreciate that. Sally, is anyone on from Senator McSally's office? Is Matt on by chance, or?
I was just looking and I don't see that Matt is on unless he's the one phone number that I don't recognize. Evidently not.
Okay. Evidently not. Sally, do you maybe, why we're waiting for the Attorney General to come on, there's probably some folks that were on the call regarding the Mesa Cares program, maybe a little bit of an update of what the city's looking to do to reopen high level. I think you can share any recent updates that of maybe interest that would affect this group potentially.
Bob's on a call from the chamber, and he's been working with us on a partnership that we're working with economic development on. So he could probably give us a quick update. Bob?
Good morning, everybody. This is Bob Nelson, Communications Director for the Mesa Chamber. And earlier today, or earlier this week, the city announced a new initiative for small businesses called the City of Mesa Cares Small Business Development Fund. They are actually looking to provide some additional support to small businesses in Mesa that did not receive any PPP or EIDL money to kind of carry them through. So beginning on Monday, there's a process where a business that would like to apply for these funds, if they have a physical location in Mesa, will be able to apply for some support. This is a series of grants that comes out of money that the city received from the federal government as part of the CARES Act. And so they've allocated it to this purpose. And they are looking to support, rent and utilities and, you know, some of those on the ground areas that a business might need help with. They are looking, at least initially, to support smaller businesses. One of the things that they have found that is of their database of about 12,000 businesses, the vast majority of those are small. So they want to try and make sure that they get some sort of a helping hand out to them as well. They did let us know that the program is dynamic, so it can change over time if they find that there are needs in other areas. So we actually have some information planned to go out later this week on it. So if you're subscribed to Chamber communication mediums, you are more than welcome to go ahead and, you know, obviously just watch that for that to come out. Otherwise, if you go to the City of Mesa Cares sort of central site, they have a link that takes you through to kind of an information page to prep you for that Monday process. So.
Great, thanks, Bob. Appreciate that update, and I know the city's working hard as well to get the city back open. A lot of businesses, certainly, as we know, have been significantly impacted by this, and the efforts that the city is taking to try and get those funds to those businesses that weren't eligible or not able to get those other funds, EDL or the PPP as well. So we'll continue that work here at the Chamber. I know Sally and her team has been very, very busy. We appreciate all the hard work from the home offices, but we're continuing to stay the course here at the Chamber to support our local businesses, to support each other through this challenging time, and the Chamber's been doing a great job communicating. So, you know, I just encourage everyone to utilize the resources of the Chamber with your business to help get you directed and pointed in the right direction. I think everyone's optimistic with some of the reopening that is going on. Hopefully that'll create a little bit of a stimulus and shot in the arm to those businesses that have been affected to try and get them back going. So it is going to be a gradual process and a slow turn on, and I think everyone respects and understands that safety is important. We're certainly not out of the woods from the COVID virus perspective. We have to be mindful, and I think you know, we as humans are very easy to go back into our own comfort zones and do things that we were doing pre-COVID, but I think a lot of the practices that have been put out there will be beneficial to slow the spread of this. But even coming up next year in the flu season as well, we need to be mindful of just the basics to try and protect our health and wellness. So with that, I think we're coming up here about 9:15. Sally, is the Attorney General joined us, or?
It looks like he's connecting right now.
Perfect. All right.
Although it looks like it's not happening. I can see it. It says, oh, there he is. Oh, no, it says connecting again. His name popped up.
Sure it works.
I think we have him.
I know.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich, are you there?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, can
Yes.
you see us? I don't think you can see us yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay, now let's try it.
Oh, I should have.
It's me, the AG is right next to me. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, Glenn.
Here's the AG.
All right. Well, great. Yeah, and if everyone can just stay on mute, we'll have the opportunity to use the chat box for questions at the end here. It is a privilege and an honor to have the Attorney General on and everyone joining. I think, sir, there's about 60 callers on the line here for you today. A little bit of background for the group here. Attorney General Brnovich is our 26th Attorney General. He was first inaugurated in 2015 and again in 2019 after winning re-election. Mark has spent most of his professional life serving as a prosecutor at the local, state, and federal levels. Mark met his wife, Susan, while they both worked as prosecutors right here in the Maricopa County Attorney's office. Mark worked in the gang and repeat offender unit and prosecuted many difficult and high-profile cases from 1992 and 1998. He then went on to work as the Assistant Attorney General with the Arizona Attorney General's Office from 1998 to 2003, where he developed expertise in gambling law. Mr. Brnovich later went on to serve as the Assistant United States Attorney General for the District of Arizona, where he prosecuted public integrity crimes as well as crimes occurring in Indian communities. So with that, would love to get the Attorney General on to start to hear about fraud and things that are impacting our elderly and vulnerable populations through this challenging time and get your perspective and insight. So welcome, sir, and again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I guess I should start off by saying thank you, everyone. At least everyone I can see apparently is dressed. There was recently in Florida, a judge had to issue an order to remind the lawyers to make sure that they had the appropriate attire on and that they actually had clothes on. And apparently sometimes people don't realize their Zoom camera, goes down below the waist. So just a little, because I'm a giver providing tips this morning, we should all make sure that we remember that sometimes the cameras go all the way up and down. And so I appreciate everyone's dressed appropriately. I also will say that hopefully no one makes fun of my beard. I have heard the Grizzly Adams jokes. And for those of you, old enough to remember, there was some Robert Redford movie where in the 70s where apparently he was some guy who went out in the wilderness and grew a beard. Jeremiah Johnson, yes, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, I thank everyone for being here. I thank you for everything everyone's doing. I understand how difficult it is right now. We are living in unprecedented times. The impact that the coronavirus, COVID-19, has had on our community and our state is devastating. And the reality is that there's not only these physical impacts, these health impacts that are affecting all of us in our daily lives, but there's also the economic impacts, and there's also a socialization impact. And so one of the things that I want to talk about, and hopefully I think my screen went blank, but everyone can still hear me. One of the things that I think is really important to talk about here right at the beginning is, we're doing what we can to physically distance, taking precautions, washing your hands and doing all that stuff to try to minimize the physical health risks. But one of the things that I think we need to remind everyone is that although we are social distancing, we shouldn't be emotionally distancing. And, in this country, and I hate to use the word an average year, but, last year there was about 4,000 suicides per month in this country. It has a devastating toll on all of us, our community. And so with everything going on, we need to remember to reach out to friends, to family, to other folks, even to strangers we don't know when we're walking around our neighborhoods, and just be nice to people, say hello to people, engage with people, let them know that someone cares about them. Because with all the isolation, all the staying at home, all the economic stress, there are a lot of folks that are being impacted emotionally and mentally as well. So let's not forget that. But as the Attorney General, one of our primary focuses and one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that we've aggressively gone after crooks, fraudsters, scammers. In fact, I think I'm one of the only government agencies that likes to get complaints. We want people to call our office. We want them to go to azag.gov and to make sure that if there's a problem or someone's trying to rip you off or scam you, you contact our office. I tell folks all the time is we can't solve every problem, but by contacting our office, we can identify patterns. We can identify what scams are coming, what we need to be aware of, and hopefully get in front of it to prevent those from happening. And if they do happen, or if someone's ripping somebody off, we can take the appropriate action. Because the reality is especially as business owners, some of the folks, the people on this call appreciate and realize that if you have a bad actor out there, it's the proverbial bad apple can ruin the bunch, the barrel. And so we need to make sure that we take the appropriate action against inappropriate actors. And that's why I would say that our office has done. If you look at just this past year, we received nearly 15,000 complaints, calls from consumers. And, we've been very aggressive in going after, whether it's big corporations like Volkswagen or even Theranos, or, carpet cleaning companies that were ripping off consumers. And I'm very proud of the fact that as Attorney General, we've recovered a record amount of restitution for individual consumers. And so since I've been AG, I'm a big believer that personnel is policy. And so after I became AG, I hired people like Joe Sherrata, Matthew DeMay, people that could work anywhere in this country and were working outside of this office, and said, hey, can you come work and serve for the people of Arizona? I'm not gonna be able to pay you as much as you made in the private sector, but we are gonna do exciting things. And every day we are gonna make a difference in people's lives. And so I'm very blessed and fortunate that I've had folks like that willing to step up and serve the people of Arizona. And so all that being said, that's the context for some of the things that I think everyone needs to kind of be aware of and watch out for that we have seen recently. One, and I think this is a big issue that's going on right now. I know my mom was excited. She finally got her stimulus or economic impact check, whatever they're calling it these days. She just got it this week. She was worried about getting it. She didn't know if it was going to come by the mail, electronically, and what was going on. And so I think everyone on this call probably appreciates that you can always go to irs.gov and get that information. And being a former prosecutor, it's tough because we're on the Zoom meeting, but this is actually, we print it out. You can go to their website, and this is what a treasury check looks like. And it's got all the information here of what to look for, not to look for, to the legitimacy of the checks. And the reason why I bring that up is we literally got complaints from people. And we said people were getting text messages and emails saying that that they needed to submit, for example, personal information, maybe their banking information, their credit card information, send money in order to be eligible for their checks. And of course, one of our big warnings to everyone is that the government will never contact you, and the government will never ever ask you to pay money in order to receive something that you're already entitled to or some benefit that you've earned. So we know that we warn everybody, and it's incumbent on everyone on this call to tell everyone they know, friends, family, their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, that the government will never contact you, and you never have to provide your personal information in order to be eligible or to receive a government check. And please don't share that information, because as we know, the crooks, the con artists, the scammers will take advantages of a crisis in order to try to separate people from their hardworking dollars. The other scam that we've seen and we've gotten alerts about, that once again is very important, is related to door-to-door scams. And there's whether it's someone claiming to be from the Census Bureau or someone claiming to be from CDC to check your home to make sure whether you have the coronavirus or to clean your house. Any of those variations, you need to be very, very suspicious of, and remind folks that the CDC is not, the government is not going out and checking people's houses or trying to make sure that checking whether see if someone has or doesn't have the coronavirus. And when I first heard about this, in fact, my mom told me someone was in her neighborhood going around and asking people to come to their homes. I was stressed because as a former gang prosecutor, you're always worried, well, is this someone trying to set up a home invasion, or doing something like that? Of course, we had gotten reports where people were not only maybe going to these houses trying to rip people off, but even people offering to go shopping for someone, taking the money, never showing up. But regardless, there was a time when if you wanted to rip somebody off, you needed a gun and a ski mask. Now all you need is a computer or a phone. So, we're urging everyone to be very, very careful when it comes to, these types of scams and what's going on with door-to-door. Anyone claiming to be from the government, the reality is you should be very, very suspicious. If you haven't affirmatively contacted someone, your radar should be up and you should assume that it's a scam. So also related to that is we have had to send notices out to several companies that have claimed that they have cures or that they have treatments to impact the virus. So, we've recently sent letters to a couple of companies that claim that they had some sort of magic tincture or some sort of, thing that could fight off a life-threatening virus. Unfortunately, as soon as they received our letters, the contact from our office, they took down their websites and they agreed not to do that advertising anymore. But that's the thing. We know that there's been more than 4,000, it's probably even more than that now, domain names registered in conjunction with Corona or COVID-19. And I'm guessing that a lot of those are not people that have legitimate business, but there are people that are going to use the opportunity to try to scam someone or to try to claim that they have some sort of magic formula or some sort of cure. So, as of now, there is no cure, there's no magic bullet, and people need to appreciate that. And, right now we need to make sure we're still observing, social distancing, washing our hands, the common sense stuff, not coughing on your friends and neighbors. And as I said earlier, make sure we're checking on everyone to make sure that everything is going right with their mental health. And so those are some of the most common scams. I could go on and remind everyone, I'm sure everyone on this Zoom meeting knows that be very wary of people calling you unsolicited. This is a huge problem. We get lots of complaints about robocalls and telemarketers, and it's a constant battle. I've supported, I try generally not to tell Congress how to do their job. I like to joke sometimes that Congress is where good ideas go to die, but our office has been very aggressive in pushing for things like the Trace Act, the shake and stir technology to make sure the phone companies aren't connecting known scammers or robocalls or phishing numbers. They aren't connected those calls in the first place. And so we've tried to work closely with our congressional delegations. In fact, I have, both of our senators we have a great relationship with, and we're trying to really make sure that we're doing things that, protect Arizonans when it comes to that area, especially in robocalls. But it's, once again, the folks are always trying to get one step ahead. And so it's something that we're very aggressive on and pushing back on. And so I'm very proud, as I said, of the work this office has done. I think many people on this call, I hope many people on this call realize that one of the ways that we fought back against, frivolous lawsuits involves the East Valley, the Mesa area. There was a lawyer who was filing thousands of lawsuits against small business owners, alleging violations of the ADA, and we intervened in those cases. And a lot of people said, why are you doing that? The AG's office has never done that. And of course, my response always is, look, we are the people's lawyers. We've got to be here to protect folks, the hardworking Arizonans. And so if someone is filing frivolous lawsuits, they, to me, are undermining the rule of law, and they're jeopardizing people's faith in our justice system. And so it was a long shot. A lot of people said we shouldn't have done it. We went in, though. We were able to successfully intervene, and we got more than 9,000 overall lawsuits either dismissed or weren't filed because of our action. And as a postscript to that story, the lawyer that was involved actually wrote a scathing op-ed that the Republic published that made allegations that were not true, that were taken out of context. And I'm proud to report that the Republic actually did a retraction or an apology for publishing that. And at the end of the day, that lawyer is now disbarred. So he's been sanctioned by the bar. And so That is just one way that we've tried to fight back and protect small businesses. And I think that whether you're a law enforcement official or whether you're a small business owner, if you're a hardworking Arizonan, what you want to know is what are the rules and, how are they going to be applied? And so you want that certainty and you want that consistency in the application of the law. I tell folks all the time that as the Attorney General, my job is to enforce the law as it is. If you don't like the law, then you go talk to the policymakers, or you run an initiative, or you change the legislature. But at the end of the day, what people I think expect and demand of an Attorney General is that you are there to enforce the law as it is, and you're there, especially in this consumer protection area, to stand up for people and to be the lawyer for people that maybe couldn't take on those battles themselves. And so that's kind of a snapshot and an overview of the things we're doing in our office. And so I appreciate everyone, as I said, on this call and all that you are doing here. And I think it's important for us to work together. And I just will say one last maybe postscript on working together is the U.S. Attorney in Arizona, District of Arizona, is Mike Bailey, and he used to be my chief of staff. And we have a great relationship, a working relationship with the federal government. And so we have formed a COVID-19 related task force to look at issues regarding scams and price gouging and those types of issues. Because a lot of times there's areas where the federal government has jurisdiction, the state doesn't, or vice versa. And so, there's literally, I think a dozen members of that task force from, the FBI to our office to obviously the Department of Justice. And so that's the idea. In these tough times, we need to put aside differences as far as, who's going to get the credit, who's going to get the blame, who has jurisdiction, who doesn't. And we need to come together to work together for the good of all Arizonans. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to set that example by working together on a federal, state, and local level to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect hardworking Arizonans. So I appreciate everyone being on this call today. I think we have a few minutes maybe for questions, comments, or anything like that, or even, I know part of my screen is a couple of them are, the windows are dark. So hopefully everyone heard this, the good news is it's not written out. So if you have to hear it again, it won't be the same. So Katie's over my shoulder now.
Sorry, I'm trying to be.
Oh my God, was I on mute the whole time?
No.
No, you're okay.
Oh, there, now we can see. Okay.
Yes.
Sally, looks like we got a couple of questions coming in here. So if you don't mind reading those off. And thank you, sir. I mean,
Sure.
That was a great talk, just trying to understand what's going on. And I know robocalls and all of those things, they are getting very creative. I think, me personally, I've seen stuff pop up with, quote, CDC on it, and they're very enticing to answer. I think a lot of us understand to let those go to voicemail, but I think to your point with the elderly population, they could get scared as it relates to their, stimulus check, and they could easily get baited. So I appreciate on behalf of all of us, probably on I don't want to speak for everybody, I think I do, is we appreciate your efforts to try and combat these fraudsters that are out there, because I couldn't agree more that one bad actor spoils the whole apple bushel. So Sally, I think we got a couple questions. We'll turn it over to you.
Well, one of the things I would add to that is the caveat is that, and I've said this before, is that people like my mom, they come from that generation that naturally wants to help people, that when they get a call from someone saying they're from the government, they believe it. And it doesn't matter how many times, even though now she's good about it, but it doesn't matter how many times in the past I'd say, IRS isn't going to call you, Social Security is not going to call you, because they use variations of that scam pretending they're from the government, because a lot of times folks that are seasoned citizens, their natural inclination is wanted to, oh my God, the government's calling me. Oh my God, the IRS is calling me. Oh my God, there's an arrest warrant. And so when someone calls then and says they're from the government, the treasury, whatever, and that in order to get your check, you've got to provide your Social Security number and your banking number and stuff. I think sometimes your natural inclination is, oh my gosh, I gotta provide that information. And so we have to be careful. And I guess the other thing I should have mentioned, maybe I'll mention, is that, charity scams. Whenever there's a crisis, a natural disaster, whether it's, when we have those terrible fires up north, or whether it's Hurricane Katrina, you will get people calling saying they're from a charity and saying, oh, we need money to help the victims, whatever. And I always tell folks that, look, there are legitimate charities. You can go to charitynavigator.org. You can check stuff out in the Better Business Bureau. But we've literally, our office actually had to sue a cancer charity that was raising money, and the money was going for administration and overhead, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 80% of the money, whatever it was going towards payroll and salary of the key people involved, and they were taking trips and buying cars, and meanwhile, none of the money was going to victims, cancer victims. And so we just need to make sure when we give money that it's a charity that you know of, an organization you know of, someone that has a long-standing reputation. You know, I'm always careful because I can't endorse specific charities here in town, but you know, someone that grew up here, you know, there's certain charities that have been around forever, you've heard of them, and you know, it's better to be safe and sorry and not give your money to someone that calls you on the phone or somebody you've never heard of.
Thank you for those comments. We do have several questions coming in. We have a question from Nicole. She asks, are you seeing particular types of scams or phishing attempts targeting local healthcare organizations as opposed to individuals?
I guess I would say I have not heard specifically of scams affecting healthcare organizations. I will say though that there are, we have heard of sometimes businesses, two types of targets, and one of these we've already taken action against, where they would send a bill or an invoice to someone in the department and say that they owe money for, like, you know, printing cartridges or this, like some sort of smaller invoice. Like maybe you get like a smaller, you know, doctor's office or, you know, medical center, something like that, where someone's in the accounting department and they get a bill that says past due and it's for like maybe $1,200 or something like that. And their immediate inclination is to pay it because they don't know and they want to make sure that there's a continuity of services. And so, you know, sometimes you'll see those variations. We've seen variations where individuals sometimes will get contacted in HR at companies and asked to provide information on someone, you know, an employee maybe that works there, or someone saying that they're the vice president or somebody else in the company and that they need information in order to you know, whatever, process some payment or, you know, provide that they need it for some reason. And then maybe someone in HR worried about, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I get this done, will send the information without realizing that they've compromised someone's personal information. And I'll give you a real world example of this without naming names, but the Attorney General, literally someone sent an email to someone in our HR department, and it looked like it was from my email address, although it wasn't. It was very close. That's why you got to check who it's from. And it literally said, hey, my wife and I are refinancing our house. I'm at the bank. I need this information right away. Please send me my direct deposit slip and all my bank stuff, all the financial stuff you have in file. Thinking they were doing me a favor, they sent all that information. And luckily someone else in her chain of command said, what? And then, you know, we were caught it, but it was a complete pain for us because we had to change all of our banking information. And then for the next 2 months, you're getting, you know, notices saying, oh my gosh, you didn't pay your cable bill or whatever, you know, and because you changed all your direct deposit and banking stuff. And, you know, and as a caveat, I was a little irritated at the bank because then they said we were no longer eligible for the account we had before. So, you know, there's always these side issues. But the point is that I healthcare specific, no, but I would anticipate that we will start seeing those types of scams, the variations. And, you know, once again, they may go through HR, mid-level people trying to say that you owe this or you're billing this. And I'm guessing that as a result of some of these, you know, the PPP stuff, the small business loans, everything going on, that you're going to see, you know, people reaching out, you know, especially when, you know, there's a lot of small business owners, a lot of restaurants, bars that are really in dire financial straits, and, you know, maybe someone coming along saying, hey, I can help you get the loan, I can help you get the finance. Right. And so that's always, you know, very problematic and worrisome. We need to be careful.
Okay. We have a question from Craig. I own an assisted living facility. Are we going to be able, or are we going to be required to disclose cases of COVID-19 to the media?
The short answer is I don't know. That's obviously an issue that the governor is dealing with at this time. And I think, no, I don't think, I know literally as we're speaking, there's litigation, there's ongoing lawsuits about that. You know, I have not been directly involved in that issue, but I have said from the beginning of this back in March, that I think we need transparency. The public needs information, as much information as we can give, without compromising people's right to privacy and their personal information. So for example, when there was cases on the campus of Arizona State University, I called for, and I thought it was appropriate for the university not to release individual information, not any identifying information, not saying whether someone was a resident, whether they were an employee, whether they were a visitor, none of that kind of stuff. But I felt like they could tell us, okay, do these people live on campus, off campus? Did they use the dining hall? Did they use the library? What people did, maybe if you've been in this area, you might have had contact. So I do think there's a way to provide information without identifying individuals. And, at the end of the day, we need transparency, we need testing, and part of that the whole point, or part of the reason why you do the testing, is because you want to be able to identify hotspots, areas, and you use a scalpel instead of a bone saw when treating, a leg injury.
Thank you for that. Another question from Lori. I worry that lawyers are going to start running ads that say, did your loved one get COVID from a senior living community or business? Are there any protections for businesses to not be sued?
The governor, I think, has issued some executive orders related to this and trying to limit, liability. And I think we're going to have to see what happens. I think without a doubt, anytime that there's a disaster or a crisis, you end up with, first responders coming in trying to help people. You end up with social services groups like, the Salvation Army and the Red Cross and those kind of organizations coming in to help individuals and displaced families. And then the third wave inevitably seems to be the trial lawyers that come in and try to, make money off of other people's misery. And so, our office has fought back. And I mentioned those ADA lawsuits that we got dismissed that helped out literally thousands of small businesses. But the other thing our office has been involved in, we're the leading office in the entire country of filing motions to intervene or filing amicus briefs, class action lawsuits. And so, there's been people that have asked, like, why are you filing a lawsuit or filing a brief in a case in California, Illinois, dealing with some sort of class action on, Wilson bats or 1-800-Flowers, whatever the issue is. And we do because it's important. It's important that when you have these lawsuits, that the money is going to the victims and not to a bunch of plaintiffs' lawyers that then perpetuate the cycle of more and more lawsuits. So, if you're watching afternoon TV, I will bet you dollars to donuts, you will see an ad today for, what's the stuff, Roundup or whatever. Have you ever used Roundup? Have you ever used aspirin? Do you have a vaginal mess? I mean, it's like crazy. I mean, and they're doing it all the time. So I know the legislature and the governor, they're the policymakers, they're working on these issues. But as I said, in our office, what we've tried to do is we've tried to be strategic. And when we think people are misusing the justice system, the court system, we've gone in and raised objections. Like I said, we've gotten literally thousands of lawsuits dismissed. We've gotten some of these class actions, the settlements geared towards restitution to the victims and not towards trial lawyers. But, we're not always successful. They're tough fights sometimes, but we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, if someone has done something, egregious and they've harmed someone, they need to be held responsible. But at the same time, if someone, made an honest mistake and they didn't do anything negligently, someone shouldn't hit a jackpot because of that.
Sure. We have a couple more questions, but I did want to take the opportunity to say thank you for all your help with the ADA lawsuits. It was pretty significant for the city of Mesa, and we appreciate all the work that your office did to help all of our businesses.
Thank you.
Question from Ed. Are you investigating hospital and care facilities disclosing COVID-19 cases that are truly not COVID cases, but are attempting to receive additional proceeds from the government for accounting for illnesses declared COVID-19?
Wow, that's a really good question.
That's a pretty sharp guy.
Yes, well, I will say that the short answer is, we don't comment on ongoing investigations. It's always difficult because you never know what may or may not happen. And we don't do that because you want to protect people that, are innocent and haven't done anything wrong, and maybe you're investigating and there's nothing to it, and you also don't want to compromise your investigation. But one of the things I will say overall in this is that we have a unit that specifically targets people that have engaged in like Medicaid fraud and financial fraud, and so related to healthcare. And we actually are one of the top units in the entire country when it comes to successfully litigating, suing, and recovering funds from medical facilities, doctors, hospitals that have misused their state Medicaid money and even their federal money. And so, I said earlier, I talked a little bit about our relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Some of these cases, because of the federal nexus of funds, the U.S. Attorney's Office has primary jurisdiction, but also as a former federal prosecutor, we have a good relationship with federal agents as well. I will tell you that just based on his history and what's happened in the past, that anytime you get this much money going into the system this quickly, that there unfortunately will be people that misuse it, that file false claims, that create ghost patients, maybe saying that they are COVID-19 patients, something like that. So it's something we need to be really careful and wary of. And as I said, if someone's breaking the rules, you have to go after them, because if someone is misusing those funds or they're taking funds that they're not legally entitled to or that they shouldn't get, that means it's someone that should have them that are treating COVID-19 patients, that a hospital or medical facility that's dealing with those serious issues aren't getting the necessary funding they need. And so we want to make sure that everyone is playing by the rules. And the other thing is, long-term wise, when you have that fraud, waste, or abuse in the system, what it does then is undermines people's faith in the system. And then they start thinking, well, wait a minute, there's a bunch of corruption or waste or whatever it is. And then they think, well, why are my taxpayer dollars going to support that? So it's really important to have that accountability. And now, as I said, I can't comment on specific cases, but I am guessing, or I'm saying that we have a history, a track record of being aggressive when it comes after those that misuse federal or state medical-related, Medicaid-related dollars.
Thank you. Hey, Glenn, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, have you seen or any complaints on, bogus PPE or any complaints from healthcare facilities that have wired money in and not got their PPE? I've heard in other parts of the country through some of my healthcare colleagues that this has been an issue.
I haven't heard, Glenn, of that specific issue here. We had an issue early on where there was allegations and the Kentucky a company out of Kentucky was price gouging and wasn't delivering masks that were ordered, and they were trying to renegotiate the price. And what I did is I got on the phone with my colleague Daniel Cameron, the Kentucky AG, and said, hey, we're hearing this. This is a company in Kentucky. And lo and behold, they got a call from the Attorney General's office, and within, I think, 24 or 48 hours, that issue was resolved. And so that's why I always say that I think we're one of the only government agencies here in the state that likes complaints, that wants to know information, because we can't take action unless we know about it. And so, I've actually got Matthew DeMay sitting in here, and I don't know if, I hate to look away from the screen, if we've got any of those calls, Matthew, but I don't recall getting any really about that specific issue. Yeah, I mean, really, the calls we've gotten have been really from consumers.
We have time for about one more question.
One more question.
Okay, well, and that's fitting. We have one more
Perfect.
question on the chat. And Anita, I'm going to let you ask your question. Anita, are you there?
I'm going to have to unmute
Okay,
myself.
There you go.
Okay. So at first I wanted to thank you for highlighting all these different technology related scams and the phone scams that we're all familiar with. Many people on this call may be familiar with that. My question is related to how your office would be getting the word out to the various senior communities, as well as perhaps people who are not in senior communities, but they're in independent living, and they're just living in their own homes. And they may be concerned about some of these calls, but who do they turn to if they're not very computer savvy and able to talk to people about this?
Thank you, Anita.
I appreciate the question, and this is one of the reasons why we have a consumer outreach group, and we literally do hundreds of presentations every year, including at senior centers and to groups about these various scams, how to protect yourself. And so it's something that we need to be really, really proactive on. In fact, I think that literally it's tens of thousands of people that we've done these presentations to just over the last year. So I've tried to be very forward leaning, as we would say in the military, about providing information, letting people know about this. If people want, like, you can go to our website. We actually have a whole COVID-19 section set up now on our website for maybe people that are administrators or people that know someone that maybe are, if you're more computer savvy, and you can request a presentation from our folks. And, you know, they bring materials and they explain what's going on and whether it's the latest scams. And one of the things that I've learned since I've become AG, and you know, I'd never run for office before. And, you know, so some of this, you know, is the politics, whatever, is new to me. And one of the things, so I don't do polling. I'm not like, you know, my polling is my mom and her friends. And one of the things that I realized is that the first time I told my mom, hey, someone calls you on the phone and says they're from the government, don't believe it. And then, you know, a couple months later, she's like, oh my God, the IRS called. They're going to say, said they're going to issue a warrant. I'm like, it's a scam. And it took me about 4 or 5 times to keep drilling into her. No, that's a scam. That's a scam. That's a scam. And so I realized that it's important to constantly be getting that message out. And so we're going to do everything we can. And you know, I try to go on, you know, radio. In fact, later today, I've got an interview with the consumer folks at Channel 3, and we're really making sure that we're doing everything we can to get the word out, especially to those that maybe don't have a computer, that don't have a phone, which does remind me, once again, I started with this, complete the circle, is there are a lot of people out there that are socially isolated right now. There's a lot of people like my mom that are very frustrated that she can't go to the grocery store. She's done hardware, you know, and just walk around the aisles and talk to people. And so there are a lot of folks that have been socially, you know, distancing, but we need to make sure that we're talking to them, communicating with them. And if you can't do it, I don't have my phone with me. If you can't do it by your phone, you know, figure out a way to reach out in person and remind folks that they're loved and someone cares about them. And we're going to continue to fight to get the word out, to warn, especially our consumers, because, you know, there are folks that, as I said earlier, come from that generation that's trusting, that want to help. And so whether it's someone trying to separate them from the retirement savings by saying that this is a way to help first responders or people that have been hit by this, or whether it's them saying they're from the government, we need to make sure all of us do our part to get the word out and, you know, keep spreading the word about being wary of the scams and, you know, pushing back against those that are trying to rip off our seniors.
Well, thank you very much, and great information today. I know you're busy. You and your team are busy. We appreciate all the work that you're doing and continue the good fight to keep these fraudsters out of our lives. So stay safe, you and your team, and appreciate your time again. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Everybody.
All right, Sally, I don't have any other agenda items here. It was a great discussion. Again, thank you, you know, for getting this set up. I think the information is so relevant. It's very unfortunate we have people that still get sucked into it, and we forget about that. But I think as comments at the end, is we've got to take care of everyone. And, you know, when we hear these things, get them reported in. I know especially our vulnerable population may be afraid because these bad actors kind of threaten them to not tell anybody that they need to do this. So it's very heartbreaking when we hear it happen. So unless you or Sherry have anything else, I don't have anything else on the agenda.
I'm good. Sherry, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. That was great.
Yeah. So
All right.
I'll follow up with his office and get some information and get it out to the group, just, you know, website and that type of information that possibly we could share a little bit more.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining the call and participating on our committee today. It was great. It was great to have everyone here, close to 60 people on the call. So very exciting. Again, we do meet monthly. If you want more information, you know, reach out to Sally. She'll give you the information on what our committee is focusing on. Our meetings are great. We always have congressional representation on there, so we're getting the direct ear of DC as well. So with that, stay safe, everybody. Keep the faith, stay the focus, as I always say to my team. This too shall pass, but enjoy the rest of your afternoon and stay cool, as our Arizona weather seems to be heating up a lot sooner than we anticipated.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.